This is reporter Julie Spencer, and I'd like to welcome you to Newsline Iowa City. Please join me today as we take a trip to the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center. We'll talk with Recycling Coordinator Jennifer Jordan about the current landfill and what they envision for the future. Jennifer, can you tell me what happens to your garbage when you put it out on the curb and then the truck comes and picks it up? What do they do with it?
Throughout Johnson County, when trash is picked up at the curb or from a dumpster or at the end of someone's lane in the rural areas, it comes here to the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center. We serve all of Johnson County and the cities of Kelowna and Riverside. So the trash comes here, and once someone has determined that something is trash, be it a cardboard box or dirty diapers or food waste or any of the multitude of things that we get here at the landfill, once someone has decided as an individual or as a business that it's going into the dumpster, it's going into the landfill. We don't at this point have a sorting facility where we have staff people that sort anything out. So if you make the decision that something is trash, it's going into the landfill. The only exception to that are things that are banned from the landfill. Those would be things like tires, lead acid batteries, yard waste, appliances, and what am I forgetting? Oh, and oil. So if the operator's down in the hole, which is what we call the landfill cell where we work every day, if the operators see those things, you have to take those back out. So if it comes in a city truck from the curbside service, the city staff has to pick that up and bring it back up here. If that comes in through a private hauler, they have to do the same thing, and then there's a separate charge for that. So those things shouldn't go in the regular trash. But other than that, if it comes out as trash, it goes down into the landfill cell, and basically what it looks like is basically just a big hole in the ground. But there's a lot of engineering and planning that goes into making that, if you will, an environmentally friendly hole, so it's not just being dumped on the ground. There's a plastic liner under the landfill, each landfill cell. There's a liner of clay so that any of the liquids or leachate in the trash or any rainwater or snowmelt, anything like that, doesn't get down into the groundwater. So the whole point of that liner system is containment of anything that gets into the landfill itself.
How big is the landfill?
We have, the city owns about 400 acres of space. About half of that is waste in place, or landfill cell, so about half of that's trash. The cell that we're in now is about 6 acres in size, and the one that we'll be moving into late this fall, fall of 2013, is our new landfill cell, which is about 13 acres in size.
And where will the new landfill be located?
Well, it's all contingent right here.
Right here.
Yeah, contiguous, I should say. It's all right here. We don't have to build a new landfill itself. The landfill is kind of the big picture, but each cell within that we plan and design separately. So the cell that we're in now, as I mentioned, is 6 acres, and that's that cost just over $1 million to build in 2006, about $1.2 million. So you can see it's really expensive to build a landfill. It's not just a big hole in the ground. There's a lot of engineering and planning and environmental precaution that goes into building a landfill cell.
How long has it been on this site?
The city moved to this site in 1972. So there are altogether, I think there are 13 or 14 landfill cells on this location. So even though it's just called one landfill, we have multiple cells here that are contiguous to one another.
And how many trucks do you have that go out every day?
The city has 5 routes, and that covers about 15,000 households in Iowa City. So there's 5 routes, 5 days a week. So we actually have 6 trucks in case one breaks down. That's another division, but we see those trucks here at the landfill every day as they're dumping.
And how many employees are there?
Here at the landfill, we have 13 full-time employees, a part-time, and just a couple summer temps usually. And then we actually have an intern this summer, which has been really nice.
Can you tell me a little bit about how do you handle hazardous material?
Sure. Well, we have a hazardous waste facility here at the Iowa City landfill, as do many landfills across the state. It's called a regional collection center. And if people are looking for one outside of Johnson County, they can log on to the DNR's website to find out what their regional collection center is. But what we do with it here is we have a facility that is free for the public to use, but it does require an appointment. So we can take things like paints that we do encourage people to deal with latex themselves. So oil-based paint, latex paint. We can take some pharmaceuticals. We can take cleaners, gasoline, mixed gas and oil, anything like that. Basically anything you don't want kids or pets or grandkids getting into. So we can take that again by appointment here at the landfill. So all people have to do is call to make an appointment. That number is 356-5185. We'll be happy to schedule an appointment for residents of Johnson County. We can also take some hazardous waste from businesses in Johnson County, but they do have to do some paperwork ahead of time, of course, and there's a fee for the businesses to use the facility. We can actually only help some businesses depending on how much hazardous waste they generate. If they generate more than a certain amount, they have to go straight to a professional, essentially, hauler for hazardous waste.
What about recycling? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. Recycling, as a recycling coordinator, that's what I love to talk about. So we actually have a lot of recycling programs in Johnson County, and there's a lot of great programs in place, and the two caveats are that we have to offer programs that people want to use and find easy to use and can afford to use, but people also have to use the programs. So for instance, in Iowa City specifically for curbside residents, we offer curbside pickup of recycling. We serve about 15,000 households at the curb, but only about 2/3 of the residents use the program of those 15,000. So there's a lot of people who are paying for the service who don't have a choice. They have to pay for it through city code. But they're not using the program. So part of what I do as a recycling coordinator is to teach people about the program and how they can use it, and to try and encourage people to use it. So we can pick up at the curb cardboard, newspaper, mixed paper, magazines, phone books now, plastics 1 through 5 and 7. Number 6 is mostly styrofoam, and we don't have an option for that yet. We're working on that. So 1 through 5 and 7 for plastics. And metal cans at the curb as well. At the drop-off sites around the community, which anyone can use, we have 5 drop-off sites, and we also have City Carton in here in town. The drop-off sites can take lots more material. They can take glass. The drop-off site here at the landfill actually takes scrap metal if people have small amounts. If they have large amounts, we encourage people to take it to a scrap metal dealer so they'll get paid for it. But we can take lots of various things. Also at the 2 of the sites in town, the Eastside Recycling Center, which is operated by the city, and City Carton, we can also take plastic bags, which is really popular for recycling, which is if people aren't using totes, they can use the plastic bags and recycle them instead. And we can also take cartons, such as orange juice cartons, or the gable top containers. If you can picture the little turn on the side, we can take those too, which is relatively new in the area.
Can you talk a little bit about the fire that occurred out here? Did it have any effect on the landfill itself?
It did. It had a significant effect on the landfill. It was in May of 2012, so about a year and a half ago now, and we're still working on not so much the cleanup, but the rebuilding. The immediate effect obviously was huge, not only on the landfill and on staff, but of course on the surrounding community as well, with the smoke and the issues that came from all of the fire itself. What happened was the liner system that we have in place that I mentioned earlier, there's a liner of clay and then a liner of plastic. Then there's a liner of collection pipes that collect any liquid that comes into the landfill, the leachate. On top of that, we have a drainage system, which in what we use here at the Iowa City landfill is crumb rubber, basically ground up rubber tires. And they're not small like you think about as a playground, like downtown Iowa City, the playscape there. They're bigger chunks, so they look like kind of just thick chunks of tire, and we use that to put down on that first layer so that when the trucks start bringing stuff into the landfill, it both cushions that piping and liner system underneath, and it also allows any liquid in the trash to drain through those tires and get to the actual leachate collection system, which we want. We don't want water building up at the bottom of the landfill because it would be really smell really bad really quickly, and it wouldn't drain properly. So the tires were actually what caught on fire, and as people probably saw, there were huge plumes of smoke for a couple of months. It smoldered for a couple months after we got the fire actually put out. So the cleanup took place through most of last fall, and they started relining the cell, and they're actually, we'll see here in a little bit when we go outside, they're actually still working on relining a portion of that cell. So we're not actually able to use it yet, but we'll be able to probably by this fall.
Jennifer, is there anything else you'd like to add about the landfill that you think people should know about it?
Sure. Every few years, the Department of Natural Resources does what's called a waste characterization study. And the Iowa City landfill was fortunate to participate in 2011. So we basically did a huge waste sort. We sorted through 50 tons of trash that came in 1 week. Literally sorted into 62 different categories, ranging from cigarette butts to couches to mattresses and everything in between. So we have a really good glimpse, a snapshot, if you will, of what's going into our landfill. The results of those studies are always shocking. And probably the most shocking thing to me is 22%, 23% of what goes into the Iowa City landfill is cardboard and paper. which we've had recycling programs for in this community for 40, 45 years. Another 25% is food waste. So another 5%, and these numbers are all on the website, another 25% is plastic. So if you start looking at the things that are going into the landfill that we all, as residents of Johnson County, pay to have hauled here and pay to maintain this space, 75%, roughly 75 to 80% of what goes into the landfill is either recyclable or compostable. So if you start thinking about all the money that we spend to dig landfill cells, to pay all the staff, to keep the lights on here, to transport our waste back and forth, is really, really wasteful. People can start thinking about what they can do to make little differences. And one example that I always use for little kids, because I think it's kind of a fun example. If you think of something as insignificant as a paper towel or a toilet paper roll. If you think about, well, I'm finished with this paper towel roll, I'm just going to toss it. It's just one, it doesn't matter. If you start adding up how many paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls one family goes through in 1 year, and then look at all the families in Johnson County, it really does start to add up. So I think it's really important for people to think about those little tiny decisions that don't seem like a big deal, that one sheet of paper or that one plastic water bottle. It may not seem like a big deal that one day for one person, but those decisions really do add up to the fact of millions of dollars on an annual basis. The Iowa City landfill has roughly a $4 million operating budget on an annual basis. That's a lot of money to bury garbage when, again, 75% of it could have been recycled or composted. So I would encourage people to start thinking about those little decisions that don't seem to think like they really matter. They actually really do matter.
And what do you see in the future for the Iowa City landfill?
Well, the city's actually in the process of something right now that I'm really excited about. We just put out a request for proposals, and this is mid-2013, to look at dealing with our waste in a different way. So we've put out a call basically for people to come to us and say, this is what we should do. And I should say a call to businesses to come to us with proposals to say, here's what we think we should do with the waste. And hopefully a big portion of any proposal, if you will, would involve recycling and composting. So that will be really exciting if something does happen with that. That could involve something called a dirty MRF, which is a material recovery facility, which means instead of the trash getting dumped into the hole, it could actually get dumped into a sorting floor and we could pick out some of the materials for recycling. Again, if you start thinking about just the cardboard alone, we could really make a significant impact on what's going into the landfill. So you start thinking about the cardboard and the paper, if we could recycle those, we could recycle or compost some of the other things, we could really make a significant impact on what's going into the landfill and significantly reduce that. So that's really exciting.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.